Hi, I'm back. Reading the Bible. I'll be using the reading plan from the daily audio Bible app, and I am in the chronological section, and so I'll be reading for January 17th, 2021. So I'll be reading Genesis chapter 16 to 18. Genesis chapter 16. Melchizedek. Do you like a good mystery? History is full of them. They usually involve people. One of the most mysterious people in the Bible is the King of Peace. Melchizedek. He appeared one day in the life of Abraham, then Abraham, and was never heard from again. What happened that day, however, was to be remembered throughout history, and eventually became a subject of a New Testament letter, Hebrews. This meeting between Abraham and Melchizedek was most unusual. Although the two men were strangers and foreigners to each other, they shared a most important characteristic. Both worship and serve the one God who made heaven and earth. This was a great moment, a triumph for Abraham. He had just defeated an army and regained the freedom of a large group of captives. If there was any doubt in his mind about whose victory it was, Melchizedek set the record straight by reminding Abraham, praise be to God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand. Genesis chapter 14, verse 20. Abraham recognized that this man worshipped the same God he did. Melchizedek was one of a small group of God-honored people throughout the Old Testament who came in contact with the Jews, Israelites, but were not Jews themselves. This indicates that the requirement to be a follower of God is not genetic, but is based on faithfully obeying his teachings and recognizing his greatness. Do you let God speak to you through other people? In evaluating others, do you consider God's impact on their lives? Are you aware of the similarities between yourself and others who worship God, even if their form of worship is quite different from yours? Do you know the God of the Bible well enough to know if you truly worship Him? Allow Melchizedek, Abraham, David, and Jesus, along with many other persons in the Bible to show you this great God, creator of heaven and earth. He wants you to know how much He loves you. He wants you to know Him personally. strengths and accomplishments. The first priest, / king of Scripture, a leader with a heart tuned to God, good at encouraging others to serve God wholeheartedly, a man whose character reflected his love for God, a person in the Old Testament who reminds us of Jesus and who some believe really was Jesus. Lessons from his life: live for God, and you are likely to be at the right place at the right time. Examine your heart. To whom or what is your greatest loyalty? If you can honestly answer God, you are living for Him. Vital statistics were ruled in Salem site of the future Jerusalem occupation. King of Salem and priest of God Most High. Key verses. This Melchizedek was king of Salem and priest of God Most High. He met Abraham returning from the defeat of the kings and blessed him. Just think how great he was. Even the patriarch Abraham gave him a tenth of the plunder. Hebrews chapter 7, verses 1 and verse 4. Melchizedek, Potiphar's story, is told in Genesis chapter 14, verses 17 to 20. He is also mentioned in Psalm chapter 110, verse 4. Hebrews chapter 5 to 7. Hagar and Ishmael, Genesis chapter 16. Now, Abraham, Potiphar's wife, had borne him no children, but she had an Egyptian slave named Hagar. So she said to Abraham, "The Lord has kept me from having children. Go sleep with my slave. Perhaps I can build a family through her." Abraham agreed to what Sarai said. So after Abraham had been living in Canaan 10 years, Sarai, his wife, took her Egyptian slave Hagar and gave her to her husband-to-be, his wife. He slept with Hagar, and she conceived. When she knew she was pregnant, she began to despise her mistress. Then Sarai said to Abraham, "You are responsible for the wrong I am suffering. I put my slave in your arms, and now that she knows she is pregnant, she despises me. May the Lord judge between you and me. Your slave is in your hands." Abraham said, "Do with her whatever you think best." Then Sarai mistreated Hagar, so she fled from her. The angel of the Lord found Hagar near a spring in the desert. It was the spring that is beside the road to Shur. And he said, "Hagar, slave of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going?" "I'm running away from my mistress, Sarai," she answered. Then the angel of the Lord told her, "Go back to your mistress and submit to her." The angel added, I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count." The angel of the Lord also said to her, "You are now pregnant, and you will give birth to a son. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, and he will live in hostility toward all his brothers. She gave this name to the Lord who spoke to her. You are the God who sees me. For she said, I have now seen the one who sees me. That is why the well was called Beerlahairoi. It is still there between Kadesh and Bered. So Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram gave the name Ishmael to the son she had born. Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore him Ishmael. Have you ever wondered if you were born into the wrong family? We don't know much about how Ishmael viewed life, but that question must have haunted him at times. His life, his name, and his position were bound up in a conflict between two jealous women. Sarah, Sarai, impatient with God's timetable, had taken matters into her own hands, deciding to have a child through another woman, Hagar, servant that she was submitted to being used this way, but her pregnancy gave birth to strong feelings of superiority toward Sarah. Into this tense atmosphere, Ishmael was born. For 13 years, Abraham thought Ishmael's birth had fulfilled God's promise. He was surprised to hear God say that the promised child would be Abraham and Sarah's very own. Sarah's pregnancy and Isaac's birth must have had a devastating impact on Ishmael. Until then, he had been treated as a son and heir, but this late arrival made his future uncertain. During Isaac's weaning celebration, Sarah caught Ishmael teasing his half-brother. As a result, Hagar and Ishmael were permanently expelled from Abraham's family. Much of what happened throughout his life cannot be blamed on Ishmael. He was caught in a process much bigger than himself. However, his own actions showed that he had chosen to become part of the problem and not part of the solution. He chose to live under his circumstances rather than above them. The choice he made is one we must all make. There were circumstances over which we have no control. Heredity, for instance, but there were others that we can control. Decisions we make at the heart of the matter is the sin-oriented nature we have all inherited. It can be partly controlled, although not overcome by human effort. In the context of history, Ishmael's life represents the mess we make when we don't try to change the things we could change. The God of the Bible has offered a solution. His answer is not control, but a changed life. To have a changed life, turn to God, trust Him, to forgive your sinful past, and begin to change your attitude toward Him and others. strengths and accomplishments. One of the first to experience the physical sign of God's covenant circumcision, known for his ability as an archer and hunter, fathered 12 sons who became leaders of warrior tribes. Weaknesses and mistakes, failed to recognize the place of his half-brother Isaac, and mocked him. God's plans incorporate people's mistakes. God's plans mocked him. Lesson from his life. God's plans incorporate people's mistakes. Vital statistics: where? Canaan and Egypt. Occupation. Hunter, archer, warrior. Relatives. Parents: Hagar and Abraham. Half-brother Isaac. Key verses: God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation." Genesis chapter 21, verses 17 and 18. A similar story is told in Genesis chapter 16 and 17. In Genesis chapter 25, verses 12 and 18. Genesis chapter 28, verses 8 and 9. And Genesis chapter 36, verses 1, 2, and 3. He is also mentioned in 1 Chronicles chapter 1, verses 28 to 31. Romans chapter 9, verses 7 to 9. Romans chapter 9, verses 7 to 9. Galatians chapter 4, verses 21 to 31. The covenant of circumcision. Genesis chapter 17. When Abraham was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, "I am God Almighty. Walk before me faithfully and be blameless. Then I will make my covenant between me and you, and will greatly increase your numbers." Abraham fell face down, and God said to him, "As for me, this is my covenant with you. You will be the father of many nations. No longer will you be called Abraham. Your name will be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations. I will make you very fruitful. I will make nations of you, and kings will come for you. I will establish my covenant as an everlasting covenant between me and you and your descendants after you, for the generations to come, to be your God and the God of your descendants after you. The whole land of Canaan, where you now reside as a foreigner, I will give as an everlasting possession to you and your descendants after you, and I will be their God. Then God said to Abraham, "As for me, you must keep my covenant, you and your descendants after you, for the generations to come. This is my covenant with you and your descendants after you. The covenant you are to keep. Every male among you shall be circumcised. You are to undergo circumcision, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and you for the generations to come. Every male among you who is eight days old must be circumcised, including those born in a household or bought with money from a foreigner, those who are not your offspring, whether born in a household or bought with your money. They must be circumcised. My covenant in your flesh is to be an everlasting covenant. Any uncircumcised male who has has not been circumcised in the flesh will be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. My covenant. God also said to Abraham, as for Sarai, your wife, you are no longer to call her Sarai. Her name will be Sarah. I will bless her and will surely give you a son by her. I will bless her so that she will be the mother of nations. Kings of people will come for her. Abraham fell face down. He laughed and said to himself, will a son be born to a man 100 years old? Will Sarah bear a child at the age of 90? And Abraham said to God, if only Ishmael might live under your blessing. Then God said, yes, but your wife Sarah, yes, but your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will call him Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. I will surely bless him. I will make him fruitful, and will greatly increase his numbers. He will be the father of 12 rulers, and I will make him into a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah will bear to you by this time next year. When he had finished speaking with Abraham, God went up from him. On that very day, Abraham took his son Ishmael and all those born in his household, or bought with his money every male in his household, and circumcised them as God told him. Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised, and his son Ishmael was 13. Abraham and his son Ishmael were both circumcised on that very day, and every male in Abraham's household, including those born in his household or bought from a foreigner, was circumcised with him. Abraham. We all know that there are consequences to any action we take. What we do can set into motion a series of events that may continue long after we are gone. Unfortunately, when we are making a decision, most of us think only of the immediate consequences. These are often misleading because they are short-lived. Abraham had a choice to make. His decision was between setting out with his family and belongings for parts unknown, or staying right where he was. He had to decide between the security of what he already had and the uncertainty of traveling under God's direction. All he had to go on was God's promise to guide and bless him. Abraham could hardly have been expected to visualize how much of the future was resting on his decision of whether to go or stay, but his obedience affected the history of the world. His decision to follow God set into motion the development of the nation that God would eventually use as his own when he visited earth himself. When Jesus Christ came to earth, God's promise was fulfilled through Abraham. The entire world was blessed. You probably don't know the long-term effects of most decisions you make, but certain the fact that there will be long-term results cause you to think carefully and seek God's guidance as you make choices and take action today. Strengths and accomplishments. His faith pleased God, became the founder of the Jewish nation, was respected by others, and was courageous in defending his family at any cost. Was not only a caring father to his own family, but practiced hospitality to others, was a successful and wealthy rancher, usually avoided conflicts, but when they were unavoidable, he allowed his opponents to set the rules for settling the dispute. Weaknesses and mistakes. Under direct pressure, he distorted the truth. Lessons from his life. God desires dependence, trust, and faith in him, not faith in our ability to please him. God's plan from the beginning has been to make himself known to all people. Vital statistics. Where? Born in Ur of the Chaldeans, spent most of his life in the land of Canaan. Occupation. Wealthy livestock owner. Relatives. Brothers. Nahor and Haran. Father. Terah. Wife. Sarah. Nephew Lot. Sons Ishmael and Isaac. Contemporaries. Abimelech. Melchizedek. Key verse. Abraham believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. Genesis chapter 15, verse 6. Abraham's story is told in Genesis chapters 11 to 25. He is also mentioned in Exodus chapter 2, verse 24, Acts chapter 7, verses 2 to 8, Romans chapter 4, Galatians chapter 3, Hebrews chapter 2, Hebrews chapter 6, Hebrews chapter 7, Hebrews chapter 11. Sodom and Gomorrah, the three visitors. Genesis chapter 18, the Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. Abraham looked up and saw three men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bowed low to the ground. He said, "If I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, do not pass your servant by. Let a little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and rest under this tree. Let me get you something to eat, so you can be refreshed, and then go on your way now that you have come to your servant." "Very well," they answered. "Do as you say." So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah. "Quick," he said, get three seeds of the finest flour and knead it and bake some bread." Then he ran to the hut and selected a choice tender calf and gave it to a servant who hurried to prepare it. He then brought some curds and milk and the calf that had been prepared and set these before them. While they ate, he stood near them under a tree. "Where is your wife Sarah?" they asked him. "There, in the tent," he said. Then one of them said, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." Now Sarah was listening at the entrance to the tent which was behind him. Abraham and Sarah were already very old, and Sarah was past the age of childbearing. So Sarah laughed to herself as she As he thought, after I am worn out and my Lord is old, will I now have this pleasure? Then the Lord said to Abraham, why does Sarah laugh and say, will I really have a child now that I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son. Sarah was afraid, so she lied and said, I did not laugh. But he said, yes, you did laugh. You did laugh. Abraham pleads for Sodom. When the men got up to leave, they looked down toward Sodom, and Abraham walked along with them to see them on their way. Then the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation, and all nations on earth will be blessed through him. For I have chosen him, so that he will direct his children and his household after him, to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just, so that the Lord will bring about for Abraham what he has promised him. Then the Lord said, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and the sin so grievous, that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know. The men turned away and went toward Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Then Abraham approached him and said, will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do right? The Lord said, if I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake. Then Abraham spoke up again. Now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, though I am nothing but dust and ashes, what if the number of the righteous is 5 less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5 people? If I find 45 there, he said, I will not destroy it. Once again he spoke to him. What if only 40 are found there? He said, for the sake of 40 I will not do it. Then he said, may the Lord not be angry, but let me speak. What if only 30 can be found there? He answered, I will not do it. If I find 30 there, Abraham said, now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, been so bold as to speak to the Lord, what if only 20 can be found there? He said, for the sake of 20, I will not destroy it. Then he said, may the Lord not be angry, but let me speak just once more. What if only 10 can be found there? He answered, for the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. When the Lord had finished speaking with Abraham, he left, and Abraham returned home. Okay, that's all. Bye for now.